Para isso, I would like to invite Ryan Schuhler, Front-End Engineer from Liferay. Tem tradução simultânea, pessoal, aqui agora para essa palestra do Ryan. Please, Ryan, come to the stage.
My name is Ryan, and I work for Liferay. I work out of the LA office, and I'm on the web team, which means I get the privilege of putting up basically everything that goes online. So I work a lot with marketing and implementing what it is that goes online, what content we show, how to get our customers to go through the journey from going from never hearing about Liferay before to hopefully becoming customers. So today what I get to do is talk about that journey and talk about how we've discovered ways of making it work for us. So what we're talking about is the buyer's journey. So you may have heard the statistic before that 60% of buyers go through the purchasing process before they even talk to sales. But basically, it's a stat that says a lot of the process happens and people do their own research, and they don't look into even talking to sales until they've done most of the research and they've made most of their decisions. And actually, we've functioned off of that idea for a long time, but actually, recent studies have shown that a lot of this isn't true. And at any point during the journey, a customer might come and talk to sales because of the way that the internet is changing and how digital business is changing. So human interactions can occur at any point in the process, and our job is then to provide the best way to get our users the information that they need and the resources they need, knowing that at any point they could be doing research on their own, or at any point they could also be contacting sales, talking. We want to know where they're at in their journey so that we can help them through that. So how do we help them develop those interactions? How do we create a digital platform that gives them an experience that will help them to know exactly what they need to do next and give them the information that is possible? The solution is right here, right? No, this is an illustration that a friend of mine came up, which is very clever, and I thought I'd share it with you. The idea that content is king. You've probably heard that before. It's a simple idea saying that it's important what you put up on your website or what you give to customers. It's not necessarily about how beautiful it looks, where UX and all those things, they matter, but for marketing, people need content that is relevant and content that is good. So content is very important. And that's very true, and we function off of that a lot. But if content is king, that would mean that context is queen. And that means that you could have the best content in the world, but if you give it to the wrong person at the wrong time, it's going to be useless. So just as important as having good content is having a context and giving it to them at the right time. So in order to do this, we need to know what our audience's motivations are. We need to know what their questions they're asking. We need to know where they're at in their journey. And it can range from anything from profiling of who they are, like their gender or their age group, but oftentimes those are limiting. It can be more about their attitudes or their interactions with you already or the behaviors that they've done on your site. Those things are even much more valuable information. So traditionally, advertising, this isn't a new concept. Like, people know that context is important. That's why you don't see stock brokerage ads on children's shows, or that's why you don't see beauty products on Sports Center or on sports shows, because they're not relevant. The content wouldn't be applicable to them. So it's not a new concept. But the way that traditional TV marketing, those people do it, even they're realizing that some of the ways that they've categorized people isn't always the best. A recent study a few years back showed that CBS, a network in America, is able to, they usually use gender and age to define what shows and what programs they should put on and how successful things are. But they did a recent study and realized that behaviors and attitudes are a much more reliable source of getting that from. So instead of saying, we're going to show everyone under 18 that's male this show, we're going to try to view the patterns of what people watch and then give them content that makes sense to them. And in digital marketing and on our websites, we have even more information about our users, not just what they're watching on TV, like TV programs do, but we have their interactions on our site, what they're interested in, what they're downloading, what they're viewing. Those kind of things are very valuable information. So we have a lot of information that we can use. We can use things like time of day, gender, your device that you're on, your location, your job role. All these things are valuable information that we have access to about our customers, and they provide the context that we need, which is very important. So they can help us. For example, if we know the gender of someone is female, then we can give them more content that is targeted towards females. If it's a clothing shop, then you can give them more women's clothing. If you were at the keynote yesterday and the following Liferay 7, obviously you need a more robust idea of what your user is. You wouldn't want to exclude them from buying other things because of that, but you can know based on things such as gender, you can kind of guide them in the right direction, give them content that might be more relevant. You can also do something with device type. I saw one site that their full site has certain call to action, and right here this is a donation site and you can give a donation here, but when they sense that you're on a mobile phone, they change the call to action so that it says give through text. And they found that those rates were much better in converting and getting donations, because when you know you're on your phone, it's easier to give through text than it was to go through the other process that they did online. So that information is very valuable for getting your users what you want. But even more, and something that we found at Liferay, is extremely valuable to know where your buyer is in their buyer's journey, what we call their buyer stage. So we want to know where they're at in the whole process of sales so that we can give them the assets or the emails or the videos, whatever it is that they need in that stage, we want to be able to give them to those. And that one is a little bit more tricky, and that's what we're talking about today. So first off, before we dive into all of that, what is the buyer's journey? I'll go through and define it a little bit, and then we'll talk about how we went and categorized everything and what it looks like. The main idea is that your users are going through journeys, and it's important that you address what they're going through and are able to adapt to that. And this is one use case that we found very important, and I'm sure all of you will use similar things. So what is the buyer's journey? A simple definition is it's a process a potential buyer goes through on their way to becoming a customer. So it's from the first point of contact with your company. So that could be someone seeing your logo, someone maybe visiting your site, maybe seeing an ad on Google. We don't know exactly what it is, but there's different touch points from that first time they interact with your site all the way to when they become a customer. That's their journey. And there's different steps along that journey, but that process is what we care about, what we're trying to help our customers through. So what does this look like? It looks like 5 stages. The first one is what we call awareness stage. So the awareness stage is when they know nothing about your company. They don't know what you do. They don't know. All they know is they have a problem, and they're looking for a solution. So they are probably, a lot of times it starts on Google, and they Google whatever it is they need. Maybe they need something about digital experience platform, and they'll come across a blog that Liferay put out or something like that. We don't know, they don't know very much about us, and we don't know where they're coming from in their context, but we know that they're looking for more generic information about just being aware of what your company is. Then after that stage, there's the education stage. So they're asking the question, what is Liferay in our case, or what do we do? They see that maybe this is a potential solution, and so they're trying to get more information about your company, trying to figure out where they stand and if it is a problem to their solution. Shortly after that then is the evaluation stage. So that means they see that this is a potential solution and they need more information. This is where they want details about it, try to figure out comparison of different rivals or other products, what it'll be that they need in order to evaluate if it's a good option for them. After that, after they've decided that Liferay or whatever your product is, after they've decided that is the right choice for them, they need to then justify that to the people that make decisions or to the rest of their company. Whatever it is, they need to be able to make a justification for what they're doing and if your product is the right thing. And then the last stage is obviously purchase. That's the point where they become a customer. And so this whole scale, we're trying to get them through this, obviously, as easily and smoothly as possible. But it's not as simple as a linear process. Users are complicated, and no buyer has the same journey, ultimately. So people could go from step to step. They might be in the awareness stage for a while, jump over to evaluation and justification, back to education. We don't know exactly where they'll be, but we want to be able to figure out where they are currently so that we can give them things that matter and things that are relevant to them. So how do we create this journey? There are 5 steps that we went through in order to create the journey and define it so that we were able to use it on liferay.com. The first part was identify. So you need to identify all of your touch points. Those are anything that your user will interact with your site, whether it's offline, online, in person. There are lots of things, and we'll go into what those look like. But the first step is to identify. Then we need to classify. So we need to say this touch point is a part of this stage, this buyer stage, so that we can then know if more of these touch points are happening, this is the stage that they're in. After we classify, then we can track where those things are, and we can start gathering the data on the people that are coming and decide where they go, so that then we can model a place for them in the buyer's journey and have a good picture of what it looks like that our user is right now and have an understanding where they're at so that we can give them the content that's relevant to them. And then last, we want to verify our process. So we want to make sure that we haven't come up with things and then just set them in stone. We want to be checking to make sure, oh, is this really a part of this stage? Is our whole buyer stage working? We want to verify, measure things so that we're able to know if it works correctly or not. So we'll jump right in. First is identify. So we want to identify the touch points so that we know where the buyer is in their journey, and so that we can assist them. So there are a variety of touch points. Basically, we're assuming that someone coming to liferay.com, our marketing site, is a potential buyer. So we want to assist them on that. There are lots of different touch points. Some of them are digital. So that would be something like form submissions. So we have gated forms. You could do free trials, lead gen registrations. There's lots of different things, but they can be digital touch points of filling in information, which are very valuable. They can also be page views, visits, things that allow you to, you can know, oh, they visited a page that has this kind of content. That's a touch point with our company. So that can be something that plays a part in their journey. There's also other interactions like event attendance, things like that. Those are also digital, and we can measure them. So in addition, you can have physical touch points, so like coming to an event, things like that. All those things are interactions that your customers have with your company, and they are important to track and to know everything that we can about it so we can give them a good experience overall. The next step is to make sure that we ignore touch points that don't matter. So we want to identify the good touch points and then ignore the ones that we don't need. Example of that would be a form submission for the contact us. In our case, if someone fills out this form, it doesn't really tell us anything about them. It could mean that they found a problem on our site, could mean that they're a customer with a question, could mean a lot of different things. So this touch point is not worth tracking for us. So identifying those will help weed down the content so that you know exactly what it is that you need to track. Other examples are, for us, documentation, forums, support. These are people that probably are already customers, already using Liferay. Some cases they might be, but the interaction with these pages themselves aren't necessarily enough information for us to go off of, so we would skip that idea. Or maybe something like a user group meetup. Another example of a physical touch point for us that not necessarily important in the buyer's journey in that model. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we identify the negative buying behaviors. So not just things that we are unsure about or don't need, but things that will tell us this is probably not a lead. For example, if they're viewing our careers page, it might be an indication that they're looking for a job, and they're not looking to buy Liferay. So we don't want to have sales call them or those kind of things if they want to be a developer for Liferay or things like that. That's probably a different journey, so that wouldn't be a part of this workflow. But identifying which ones can be negative, so it'll actually lower them in our scale, is very beneficial. So next step, we need to classify. So we want to map touch points in order that we know where they are in the stages, and we can say all of these touch points that we have, they belong to this stage. So it can be going through, this is us mapping some of the different points along the journey, different assets, different touch points that we have on the website, and saying where do they belong in the journey. So I like hard evidence, things that are tangible that I can see. So I came up with a few ideas of different touch points and where we classified them for ourselves. So in the awareness stage, when they're asking, I have a problem, is Liferay a possible solution? Things like blog posts. So if they view a blog post, for example, maybe it's about a digital experience platform, and we have a blog about it, someone Googles that and visits it, that's an awareness stage event. So we would classify that as awareness. Something else like a white paper download, whatever it may be, those will help us identify, they're in this stage if they're viewing this asset. Next stage, education, that can be things like our products pages. They're getting more information about Liferay. Could be looking at case studies, a tech spec thing. It could be a roadshow attendance. They're just trying to get information. So we're categorizing those touch points as things that are in that stage. Evaluation examples, like a product demo, they're downloading it, they're looking at comparison guides. They're getting more serious about looking into the details of Liferay, and we want to know that they're in that point so that we can help give them more information about why they should choose Liferay and why that's important for them. And then justification, we can give them things that will help them convince their boss or convince their company or the IT lead or whatever it is, testimonials or estimates, things that are relevant to them. And if they're looking for those things, those are signs that, they're in that stage as well. So we have all of our information and we have all of our touch points, and they are classified in different areas, and this allows us to then track them for the user. So we have offline interactions and downloads and form submissions, all these things that have been categorized, and then we're able to make a picture of who our lead is. So we can know, they have all these events in this stage and all these events in this stage, and it gives us a better picture, fuller idea of where they are in their journey, so that we can better help them through that journey. So an example is we have somebody that's visiting awareness events. So they're seeing certain pages that we've deemed as awareness events, those things, so their score for awareness events is going up and increasing. And it's obvious to see, and they also view some assets that are education, and that's good. We still want to know that. But as we see more and more things, we're able to track them. One rule that we found is the current buyer stage, so where they are in this journey, because as we said, they can jump around from different things, but the current one is the current stage with the most interactions, which is a simple idea, but oftentimes you wouldn't think to go back and forth and jump. But this is a very dynamic idea and a fluid journey, and we want to make sure that we're adapting to wherever they're at in their current time. So that looks like if someone has a bunch of awareness stage events, as we were saying, and a few education stage events, then their current buyer stage is going to be awareness, because that's what they're most active at right now. So we want to give them content that is about your awareness stage. Whereas if we have another person who has done the opposite and they're doing more education stage events and having more of those touch points, then we want to classify them as an education stage user. Or if they're in the evaluation stage, we can see that by the touch points that we've deemed evaluation, and then we're able to classify them as evaluation. So that's a simple enough idea. In practicality, there's like two ways of scoring them. So each of these touch points, you could traditionally have them so that each touch point So the page website and the interaction, they're all equal. So they're all worth the same amount, and they just continue to add up, and you get those touch points. But not every interaction is worth the same amount. In reality, a weighted distribution is easier to get a better picture of your user. So if someone views a page or you have a personal interaction with them, the personal interaction is worth a lot more, so you can weight it more in your scale. So the page view is maybe worth 1 point, and the interaction is worth 5 points. So if you have 3 page views in the awareness stage and 1 interaction in the evaluation stage, that one's going to take precedence over and give you a better picture of your user. Another super important idea is that we allow time to be a factor. So in order to keep this model accurate, we need to be able to say if someone has a bunch of awareness stage events and then a few education stage events, we want to make sure that they're able to, as time goes, awareness stage events, they decay, essentially. If someone is in the awareness stage and they have all these events, and then they move to the next stage, but the other events still take precedence, that wouldn't make sense. So we're able to tell it as time goes, the most recent events are going to determine what stage our user is in. So lastly, we've identified everything, we've classified it, we started tracking, and then we made our model of what it is that our user, where they fit in. We want to also make sure that we verify, because if we don't, then our very well thought out process might not be working and we wouldn't know. Possible ways that you can verify things, just to double check, is by correlation. So just figuring out what it is the content that we're giving them useful and is it effective. One example that we had was, for a while we thought that if a user was visiting our marketplace, we should give them more lead scoring because they may be interested in certain products, certain things. But over time we realized that people who visited marketplace were not converting to leads at all and they weren't interested. So we decided to scratch those pages in viewing marketplace apps is no longer as heavily a part of our model of saying this is moving them from one stage to the other, because it wasn't working and it wasn't effective. And you'll only know that if you take the time to record it and to track it. Another way you can test is by doing A/B testing. So you can target content or try different content out and see if it's working. So you could do one piece of content that was about maybe, it could be about, your buyer stage. You could say, we think they're in the awareness stage, but then you can do another one that you target it based on your industry and see which one performs better. Because maybe in this instance, maybe buyer stage isn't the best thing to go off of. Maybe industry helps move that forward more. So by testing those things, you can see what is most effective for those buyer stages and help refine your content. And then lastly, is it relevant? You can ask them. You can do feedback forms. You can see when people become customers, ask them, get their feedback. That's always a great option and much easier to actually get what they're feeling than guessing based off of the metrics. So you identify all your touch points, you classify them, then you track them so that you're able to build your model, and then you want to make sure that you verify everything that's happening in your system. So what do you then do with this? That's how we created our buyer's journey and how we're using it and finding it useful. It can look different for everybody though. And what we want to express is that your users are going through journeys. So you want to identify them. The one that we're talking about is buyer's journey, but it might be different, or there might be multiple ones for you. So something like your partner's journey, or maybe your customer's journey, or maybe it's even just staff onboarding. The importance is to identify your journeys and figure out what it is that is important to people and what processes your users are going through, and then identify how you can help them through that. And if it breaks down into stages, whatever it looks like, the first step is identifying those journeys so that you're able to then give people the content that they want. Another key thing that we found is to integrate third-party apps. So Liferay is super flexible and great at integrating whatever it is that you need. So there are lots of apps out there for CRMs, for marketing automation, for emails, analytics, all those things. We currently use HubSpot, also Salesforce, Google Analytics, a lot of things. Liferay makes it very easy to integrate those things and make them very, very accessible so that you can use Liferay to target your content, so that you can not have to build everything in-house. Whether or not you have the resources for that, it'll take time, it'll take money, whereas these third-party apps are great and they do a lot of different things and you're probably already using them. So integrating those into Liferay is a key part in being able to measure the journeys based on what your use case is. And then lastly, and probably the main idea is just you want to give relevant content to your users. You want to utilize their behavior and what they're doing on your website in order to give them the content that makes sense to them. And a great way of doing that, and the way we found, is through audience targeting. So the app that allows you to, basically define user segments and say, this group of users, we want to show them this. This group, we want to show them this. And that's how you get specific content. That's how you do that. And it works across platforms so that we can have a whole experience of your user has a consistent and personal experience wherever they're at. And it's great that it's also able to use your third-party integrations. So we have all of our information in HubSpot, and we're able to pull that into audience targeting and create segments that are in audience targeting that then gives them, based on their buyer's journey stage or their industry or whatever it is, we give them content that is relevant. So it can look like something like an ad for, if we know that they're a developer, then we can give them an ad with a call to action to download and try it in the cloud, and there's people at computers, in the background. But if we know that they're a business person, then we can give them something that more relevant calls to action. So request a demo, or try Enterprise for free. Give them play with different layouts, with different look and feels. Whatever it is, we can test a lot of different things because we know where our users are at and where they want to go, and we can help them with that. It's important because people expect seamless integration between their digital experience. More and more today, people are expecting that when I change devices, when I go different places, I want personalized content and it needs to be relevant. If you have information that's not relevant to them, they're going to go somewhere else. So we need to give them that, and we need to implement that. And using Liferay as a digital experience platform can and will help with that. So we want to deliver consistent and personalized experiences across whatever channel it is in order to do successful digital business. So are there any questions or comments? We have a few minutes left.
Ask them which one of them is already using in any certain level this kind of approach. Mm-hmm. If you could summarize your presentation, the last slide actually did that. Why is this important? If you put that way, traditional marketing, broadcasting information through magazines, whatever, newspapers, stuff like this, pushing you to go to a physical store, something like that. You start dialoguing with a salesperson, you get the kind of personalization that we are proposing right now using the concepts that you presented. How do you see that? Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. I think, things are getting more personal, and marketing is changing so that, print and those things are so specific and so set. And so as we have the web and the resources that we have, things get more personal, and that's what the digital experience that we've been talking about is all about, is making things where the people are at and however they're interacting consistent and personal, and that's how we reach them essentially better.
I'm from marketing, and I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. It is, when you are talking about the journey, you are doing that using HubSpot, or you are doing that using the Liferay tool?
So currently we use both. So we track the journey, all of those stages that happens, and all of the values that we add. We define all that in HubSpot, and then we use Liferay tools to pull that information. So you could, You could do it in Liferay. You could make your own things that do the categorization and pull those things. But we were already using HubSpot, and a lot of the tools that they have to workflow and all that are very easy for our marketing team to use. So it's great that we can then define the journey there and then implement it exactly as we need in Liferay. So they work together.